Out of all the gross crap I've seen on the internet, this first video has to be the most horrifying video, void of blood and gore. It definitely allowed me to differentiate shocking content from terrifying content. The Russian brick video absolutely deserves a content warning. The video begins with what is seemingly just normal dash cam footage. A man driving with his 29-year-old wife in the passenger seat are heading down a typical country road somewhere in Russia. The terrifying screams coming from the man leave us with an auditory representation of a truly monstrous scene. Everything after the brick flies off the truck and through the windshield is off camera. We don't need to see what happened to feel the anguish. After the brick flies off the truck, it catches the perfect trajectory and comes penetrating through the windshield. It flies directly into the face of the man's wife, destroying and mangling the bones and flesh. The amount of force and speed behind the brick meant this woman had no chance. Of course, it's probably one of the worst things that can happen. In an instant, a life is taken. At least she went quickly, right? Even though the velocity of the brick was great, it wasn't enough to kill on impact. The woman suffered for hours after, all the way up until she was pronounced dead at the hospital, struggling for air with a caved-in face, with minimal sight. All you can do is listen to the screams of your family as you cling to life. Apparently, they weren't the only two in the vehicle. Another couple was in the back seat, as well as the victim's baby. Oh, fuck. Jesus. The screams are just so haunting. Honestly, I would be blaming myself to the day I died.
Ruth? What's the problem, ma'am? Oh, there's some guy been checking the place out. How? Well, he went in the back. I have an apartment in the back, and he said he was looking for a guy. And he comes to my door, and said he's looking for an apartment. So I live alone, and I'm an old lady. Mm-hmm. Where is he now, ma'am? I have no idea.
This phone call by an elderly woman named Ruth Price is jarring, to say the least. The blood-curdling screams are so real, they almost take your breath away. There was much speculation on this case. The rumors on the internet ranged from a 911 operator training call to a hoax, basically a prank call and to 911 operators. Now, for this to be a prank call, with how convincing the terror in the voice on the other end of the line is, it's just not acceptable to me. It has to be 100% real. Fandom story, which serves as a means of sort of a creepypasta behind what truly happened, at first seems convincing, but it quickly divulges into a far-fetched story. And it's a little graphic, so no filter warning. The story goes as follows. On January 13th, 2014, Ruth Price called 911 operators about a man stalking her house. After a while, the man barges into her house and beats her constantly. This man was Soviet Steve. All she could hear was the Soviet national anthem as Steve was strangling her. When police arrived, they saw Ruth stapled on the ceiling with sickles, her guts spilling out, eyes chewed out and shit on. God damn, what the fuck? Her head smashed by a hammer, her tongue was bitten off, and she was clearly raped after her brutal death. When the police went into her bedroom, they saw her intestines on the wall shaped like the Soviet Union flag with blood under it saying Soviet FTW. Soviet Steve is now wanted for third-degree murder, rape, and necrophilia. Which is just flat out insane. I mean, if there was a murder such as this, everyone would have heard about it. So it seemed that there could be any answer to this story. Anyone can make up whatever they believed, and some stories would be more convincing than others. Until about a month ago, when a Reddit user by the name far_valuable5819 seemed to have put the few pieces that were available together and solved this case after decades or so of speculation, ranging all the way back to the 1980s. Within the post, the user explains they become aware of the call through one of their favorite true crime podcasts, Going West. This particular episode of Going West was episode 162, the Ruth Price 911 call. In the call, Ruth begins to give her address 3877 and then is cut off by the operator. She continues to give information of the man lurking around her building, asking for an apartment. Then you hear the man attack and Ruth saying something about not being able to breathe. The post continues as follows. Ruth Mildred Starr was born in Pueblo, Colorado on December 7th, 1913, to Thomas O. Starr and Joanna Egler. Ruth went to Central High School in Pueblo, Colorado. Ruth Starr married William Walter Price, and both were still listed as living in Pueblo, Colorado in 1935, but then can be found in 1940 census living in San Diego, California. I also found that Ruth in 1973 and 1975, 76, 8, and 9 was in the San Diego City directory living at 3877 North 35th Street. Remember that Ruth in the 911 call said she lived at 3877 before the 911 operator cut her off. It appears that Ruth and William had 2 daughters, and William passed away in 1972. During my research, I found a listing for an obituary for Ruth M. Price in May of 1994. The entire obituary wasn't being shown, so I went looking for the full obituary. Instead, I found a Ruth M. Price listed in the newspaper section called Assault on November 3rd, 1980 in the San Diego Evening Tribune. In this newspaper clipping, it says Ruth M. Price was assaulted on the 3800 block of 35th Street. This newspaper clipping fits the Ruth Price 911 call perfectly. I truly believe that this is the missing piece that identifies the Ruth Price of the unknown 911 call. It wasn't a hoax or a 911 training call. The blood-curdling scream was unfortunately very real. The good news is Ruth, even being in her old age, fought off her attacker and lived for another 14 years. One more note is that in reading another Reddit post, most likely this 911 call isn't really a 911 call. Apparently, there was no 911 in San Diego in 1980. So most likely, Ruth Price was talking to an operator of some kind. Maybe she dialed 0 or had to reach the police station. Officers said Ruth M. Price, a 3800 block of 35th Street, was calling police to advise them of a prowler in the area when she was grabbed from behind and choked. She was able to break the attacker's grip after dropping the telephone and screaming and pulling at the attacker's hands. Price said she did not know why she was assaulted and had never seen the suspect before. This seems to match the circumstances of the recorded call, somewhat a happy ending to this case. Much better than the fandom. Doesn't change the fact that this is still one of the worst screams you'll ever hear. Well, that's it. Thanks for watching, everyone. This disturbing phone call was found on the answering machine of one of the victims of the original Night Stalker, also known as the East Area Rapist, whom was found to be responsible for 13 murders, 50 rapes, and 120 burglaries across California between 1974 and 1986. This was a real recording of the actual voice of the serial killer. Heavy breathing following, "I'm going to kill you, I'm going to kill you." If you listen to it a lot, it does seem kind of hilarious that someone is taking the time to leave a message like this and to go to all that effort to sound so sinister. But just imagine being back then, listening to that on your voicemail, especially in the 70s with no caller ID or anything. Someone knowing your number and most likely watching you and knowing where you live. Something that would be difficult to ignore. This guy had people staying up all night, with family members holding shifts watching the house and keeping a lookout. It did come out very recently as 2018 that the East End Rapist, also known as the Golden State Killer, had finally been identified and caught. 76-year-old Joseph James D'Angelo, a former police officer in the burglary unit in various precincts in the eastern area of California. It turns out that Joseph James D'Angelo, early in his police career, he ended up shoplifting a hammer and dog repellent, which led to his 6-month suspension and eventual termination. During his suspension, he threatened to kill the police chief and even stalked the man's house. Working in this field meant he knew exactly how to burglarize homes and gain entry, often breaking into the homes earlier in the day while the victims were away and leaving windows unlocked to regain entry in the night. There are some horror stories of him holding his victims at gunpoint, stacking dishes on the back of his male victims, most likely the husbands of the women that he raped. He would stack these dishes, sometimes 60 high, and told them he would murder the both of them if they tried to stop him or if any of the dishes broke. As the man would lay on the floor with all these items stacked on top of him, Joseph would be raping the woman in the other room. Damn, dude. There are tons of examples of this killer's insane behavior that are outside of his crimes, such as leaving voicemails to his neighbors and saying he would deliver tons of death to their family because their dog was barking too often. Anyone who opposed him always struck a nerve. If things didn't go the way he wanted, it would most definitely always result in a threat of some kind or strange behavior. I may do a future video on the Golden State Killer, so be on the lookout for that.